Okay, so once again, I asked my friends to suggest me some topics, and this time one of them just threw this. And yeah, I too asked him the same question that you're thinking right now, which is elaborate. Please elaborate what is the thing or things, factors, or situations that is making you fear your life. Upon asking this, he was blank. Well, at this point, I have two options. Either I ignore the topic or do something with it. And I'm choosing the latter option because I find this topic pretty intriguing. I have heard people use this sentence before on multiple occasions, which is, I feel fear thinking about life. But when asked the reason behind it, they just go blank. And I think the reason behind it can be either they don't know how to articulate what they are feeling, or they fail to assess the reasons behind the feeling, or simply they don't know what to do next once they figure out the reason. So let's take a deep dive into this. I'm going to talk about this topic from two perspectives. First, I'm going to talk about fear, and then I'm going to talk about life. So, what is fear? Fear is an emotion, and emotions are inevitable. So, it's not possible that you can eliminate emotions unless the regions in your brain which are responsible for emotions somehow get damaged or altered due to certain factors or lobotomized if possible. It's not possible to eliminate emotions, but most of the time it is possible for us to choose what we do with these emotions. It is possible to a great degree to change the outcomes of situations influenced by these emotions by how we control and manage them. Pay attention to my words. What I am emphasizing here is the term controlling and implementing. These two are very important while dealing with emotions. While dealing with emotions, somewhat you control them and somewhat you use them for your own good by listening to them. Yes, by listening to them, you heard it right. Emotions are neither bad nor good. They can emerge from various situational factors, and sometimes you may not be able to control them. Consider this variable as well, and that's completely okay. But most of the time you can't. And in the times where you fail to control your emotions, make sure you are emotionally intelligent enough to make up for the action that you caused out of emotions after you realize and get the chance. And please don't bring your ego. Don't let it ruin your relationships with people. If you see the scope for making up for your actions that you caused out of emotions, then just make up for it. Or at least apologize if you have done something wrong to someone as soon as you realize it. Sometimes the weight and intensity of emotions might get so high that it may kill you, but not every time. So when it doesn't, make sure you do the other way around. So, yeah, you will fear emotions at various occasions in your life, and you will feel fear at various occasions in your life, just like any other emotion, for sure. And just like any other emotion, you can choose what you do with it by logically interpreting it and then choosing the right response and actions accordingly. And you can only do this when you apply this simple philosophy when encountering emotional situations in your life. And the philosophy is emotions in the initial stage are very raw and instantaneous. Therefore, we are susceptible to reacting out of impulsivity, which leads to vague judgment, hurtful actions, and most probably, we might end up doing and saying things which we might regret later. So, no matter what happens, We need to give ourselves some time before acting on emotions. This simple, yet very hard to adopt philosophy will help you in various situations of your life involving emotional elements. I think that's enough of my philosophy, as I was supposed to be talking about fear and life and not going into depth explaining emotions. But it was crucial and also going to serve as a base for what I'm going to talk about next. So I guess it's not that useless. Anyways, let's address the elephant in the room. As we are talking specifically about one emotion, which is fear, let's look at the pros and cons of it. Why is fear useful and important? We fear because it acts as an alarming tool as well as prepares us to face the upcoming or already persisting danger or threat. And here is where things get a little interesting and complex. It is not necessarily needed for the threat to be real, even if the threat is not logically real, yet our brain perceives it as a threat or danger, then it activates the same process of alerting and preparing our body, which leads to anxiety and other fear related sub responses, something we call the fight or flight response. And because of this exact mechanism, fear can sometimes be problematic and not be in our favor in a lot of situations. Thus, fear is useful as well as it can be a problem. Fear is good and important so that you don't jump from a cliff and get yourself killed. Fear is important so that you don't take a dive into the ocean. Fear is important so that you don't touch fire and get yourself burned. Fear is important so that you don't take a bare hand fight with a 300-kilo buffalo. Fear is important because it tickles and wants your heart to reconsider the decision of blindly loving the person who one day suddenly decided to unblock you in the middle of the night out of nowhere, then bombarded you with wrathful statements and allegations, and then again blocked you so that you don't even get a chance to express yourself, surprised you with an anxiety attack in the middle of the night, left you questioning your life decisions and choices, blabbering to yourself, trying to calm down your body from the anxiety attack, confused whether to wake up your parents or not, or whether to call a friend or not, so late at night. But is fear useful and good all the time? The simple answer is no. The reason, as I mentioned earlier, is that even if the threat or danger is not logically real, yet our brain perceives it as a threat or danger, then it activates the same process of alerting and preparing our body, which leads to anxiety and other fear related sub responses. And as I said earlier, fear is also an emotion, and emotions are very instantaneous and raw, therefore, leading to hijacking our ability to look into the matter through the lens of logic and reasoning. And to think logically and reasonably, we need time and patience to process the data, which we hardly get when things are instantaneous and raw. So, fear becomes a hindrance and illogical when we know that we can jump from the cliff without worrying so much as we have a parachute on us. We can take a deep dive into the ocean without worrying so much as we know how to swim, as well as we have all the necessary tools and equipment for our safety. Yes, touching the fire will burn you, but the same fire can be used for a lot of applications. Cooking is one among them. You cannot take a bare hand fight with a 300-kilo buffalo, but you can still win the fight if you have access to the right knowledge, skills, and tools. It's okay to reconsider the decision of blindly loving the person who crumbled you out of their stupidity, naivety, lack of empathy, and immaturity. But it doesn't mean you should generalize this to every human being living on this planet. It doesn't mean you blame an entire race, community, religion, institution, or group because of that one bad experience and one stupid person. Now, let's talk about life. If you ask what life is to a biologist, they may give you one definition. Similarly, if you ask a monk, they may provide another definition. And if you ask a philosopher, they may provide a different one. And if I ask you, then maybe you too have a definition of your own. So this conundrum goes on. So, first, let's cut off this complexity and look at life at its base level. You are an organism, which means you need energy to survive, and that energy comes from food. Second, you need to protect yourself from ending up as food, which would provide a source of energy for other organisms. Third, you will die one day. So make sure you leave your progeny behind so that your species survives. That's it. That's life at its base level. Now, if you put your brain to some work and substitute this concept, then you will find its play in our everyday life. So, of course, you will feel fear when you are not doing things that would bring food to your table. Of course, you will feel fear if you don't have enough resources that would ensure your safety. Of course, you will feel fear of dying lonely if you think you are not appealing enough to get selected by a partner. Of course, you are going to feel fear that someone else might surpass you, someone or something may kill you. Not in the literal way, but I'm talking metaphorically here. So, there are a few things that you need at the base level because it's what made our species survive and thrive in the wild. So, if you don't have it, then your brain will definitely tickle you by producing fear because it's important for your survival and sustenance. Now, let's add some nuance and complexity here because that's what life is. We are not living in the wild anymore, and the world has achieved things we wouldn't even have thought of in our imaginations. Now, it's not just our base level needs we are chasing, but more. Because of this, things have become a bit complex. Life is a multidirectional, multifaceted thing, entity, element, or phenomenon, whatever you call it, with so many variables, which means not everyone can have the same life because even a single variable can make a huge difference. Along with this, life also exists in the realm of time, which means you can know what happened in the past, and to some extent, you can also estimate what's happening in the present. But you definitely can't be sure about what will occur in the future, which means the future is unknown, therefore, always leaving a room for ambiguity and a certain amount of uncertainty, which always leaves room for fear because we fear the unknown. So, even if you have all the things necessary for your base level survival, or even if you have everything you desire, there is still chance that you may feel fear because of the ambiguity, uncertainty, and complexity life brings along with it. So, time to time, you will definitely feel fear. And not just fear, you will feel other emotions as well at various situations of your life because that's the job of your emotional brain. But you can only tackle it effectively if you have the right knowledge stored in your logical brain. Because even though emotions are strong and get triggered first, yet when it comes to assigning meaning to those situations, ultimately it all falls back to our logical brain once the initial heat of the emotion settles. Therefore, it becomes very important what you feed to your logical brain. Now, let me explain it with an example. Yes, you are indeed going to feel fear if you are not earning because we live in a capitalistic society where we have invented an exchange system where we use currency as the medium of exchange. So, yeah, You will feel fear if you are not doing something that will ensure you money because it brings you food, clothes, shelter, experiences, healthcare, and other safety related benefits. And these things also indicate that the person who has access to all this is a potential partner and a reliable human being. So, does it mean that having money alone can eliminate the fear of life? The simple answer is no, and the complex reason behind is that life is complex. Yes, money can give you access to a lot of things, but it doesn't mean people will stay in your life just because you have money. It doesn't mean you will never feel insecure. It doesn't mean that every problem in life requires money to be solved. It doesn't mean there will be no times where you will have existential questions. It doesn't mean it will give you immunity from all the chaos of this world. This is just one example I gave using money, but the same logic applies to all other aspects of life as well. Yes, it's true that fulfilling your base level needs will provide you a sense of comfort and peace, but it's also true that there is always going to be chaos, and confusion, ambiguity, and uncertainty in all those aspects of your life as well. And these can be solved, or you can at least try to make some sense of them through wisdom, not just information or knowledge. Because in today's world, it's available in tons and easily accessible as well. But it's only when you cultivate the information and knowledge that you reach wisdom. And personally, I don't think we can truly acquire wisdom because nothing is absolute truth, and when something is not absolutely true, you will never get an absolute answer for it. So, in that sense, we can never become completely wise. But at least we can try to get as close as possible to the most logical truth. And that can only be done when you question things, when you think about things, and most importantly, when you can let go of things you have already learned when encountering a more logical answer than the one you already know. Okay, now let me summarize it for you. Emotions are part of your life and they are crucial aspect of life because that's what makes you human. So you will feel different emotion in almost every aspects and turn of your life. But it doesn't mean you are entirely operated by your emotions because your brain is also highly capable of operating from logical aspects as well. And in reality, both your logical brain and emotional brain work together, not against each other. It's like one makes you alert and prepares you for action, while the other provides you the tools and instruction about how you should take the action. Therefore, it becomes very important what you feed to your brain because that's what is going to serve as the tools and instructions. So consume good stuff as much as possible. Read good books, consume art, learn about human nature and psychology, listen to people who have really worked hard and become masters in their respective fields, so on and so forth. Let's understand it with an example. Let's just say somebody humiliates you. In that very moment, your emotional brain gets activated and prepares for action, but it cannot take action on its own because it relies on the information stored in your logical brain. But your emotional brain wants to act fast, because of which it doesn't allow your logical brain to take time and provide the most suitable response. Instead, it retrieves what's in your working memory, or what you practice the most in your day to day life, or what you have practiced in similar situations in the past. So, let's say you have always handled humiliation by saying something more humiliating to the other person or by choosing violence, then in the moment you might do the same thing. Or let's say it's happening to you for the first time, then there is a chance that you may go completely blank or react based on your emotional state at the very moment. Or let's say you're someone who practices peace and detachment, then you might simply walk away. And the reason why I'm using the words like might and may is because your actions can also get influenced by the variables present in the surroundings where the incident is occurring. Yes, that's also possible because human nature is complex. Well, I think I have covered almost everything. I hope you have gained some new perspectives from this video.